welcome. So we're going to have opening statements, and then we'll reverse the order for closing statements. So based on the straws that you pulled there, we'll have Donna first, and then Susan and Bill. And we'll give you 2 minutes each.
Starting now. Sure. Good evening. My name is Donna Gopaul. I am the Solicitor General. I was appointed by Governor Deal in March of last year. And I'd like to thank the Forsyth County Tea Party for putting this on as well. I am the prosecutor. For those of you who don't know what the Solicitor General does, the Solicitor General is in charge of prosecuting all of the misdemeanor crimes in the county, where the district attorney is in charge of prosecuting all of the felonies. The difference between a felony and a misdemeanor are those crimes that are punishable by 12 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. Sometimes the fines are more, depending on the crime. And a felony are things that are punishable by more than 12 months in jail and more than a $1,000 fine. So I'm in charge of prosecuting things from your speeding ticket or following too closely ticket to a possession of marijuana less than an ounce, or a DUI, alcohol or drugs, to a theft by taking with a value of $1,500 or less. Those are the things that I'm responsible for prosecuting in the county. I am responsible for prosecuting in 2 state court courtrooms. Judge McClellan is our chief state court judge, and Judge Abernathy Maddox is our other state court judge. I'm also responsible for prosecuting in the magistrate court here as well. I'm also the only candidate here tonight who's in charge of participating in all of our new accountability courts and our DUI court accountability court, which is a wonderful program that is aimed at those who have multiple DUI offenses, and it helps rehabilitate them and have them go through counseling and therapy and drug testing and to pay fines and report to probation. And we have a very high percentage success rate and a very low recidivism rate. So the DUI court program is a wonderful thing. Also working with the brand new misdemeanor drug court program and the new soon to be starting mental health court program here in the county. I'm also the only Republican here who has cut the budget by $200,000 since I've been in office of March of last year. That's a savings of 13% to the taxpayers of Forsyth County. Also, since I've been Solicitor General, I've embraced the multi-million-dollar calendaring system that the county bought over 3 years ago, and we're using it to its full potential. And that in turn has helped me cut the budget by $200,000.
Thank you, Donna. Susan?
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Susan.
Sorry.
My name is Susan Zereini, and I'm. Let's see now.
There
There we go. There we go. My name is Susan Zereini, and I'm the Republican candidate for Forsyth County Solicitor General. The question I've been asked most since I've started my campaign is why I want to be solicitor. I have a vested interest in this community. Since 2006, when my husband and I chose Forsyth County to build our home and raise our family. I was a prosecutor for 13 years. My passion and love for prosecution throughout that 13 years is why I want to be Solicitor General. I am running for Solicitor General so I can use my 13 years of experience to keep this county safe for my family and all the citizens of this county. Make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, I am the only candidate with 13 years prosecution experience. My opponents both combined don't even have half of the experience I have as a prosecutor. I am also the only candidate that has both felony and misdemeanor prosecution experience. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a graduate of St. John's University. I went to receive my Juris Doctorate from New England School of Law. I was a prosecutor in 2000 for the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. I worked my way up there. In 2005, became a senior assistant district attorney. And eventually, I worked my way up to become bureau chief in the gang bureau. And there, I supervised felony trial assistants, investigative assistants, and support staff. In 2009, I joined the Cherokee County Solicitor's Office as an Assistant Solicitor General, and within 2 years I became a Senior Assistant Solicitor General. And there, I was part of the team that created the first misdemeanor drug court in the state of Georgia. I also served as Assistant District Attorney in Pickens County. Today, I ask you for your support, your vote, and your prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Bill?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Finch, and I'd like to thank Sherry and the rest of the Tea Party for inviting me to speak to you and let you know a little bit about me. I'll be asking you for your support later on, but before I ask you for your support, you'll probably want to know among the candidates here who is invested in you before you start saying who are you going to invest in. I moved here to Forsyth County in 1993 when they talked about Forsyth County exploding when there were 40,000 people here. So the perspective of exploding has changed somewhat over the past 20 years that I have lived here. I was a Fulton County police officer for 8 years, and that has helped shape some of my belief systems. I saw firsthand the dramatic effect that crime can have on people, especially victims. I have, after I moved up here, I became a prosecutor for Leslie Abernathy, who is now a judge in the state court of Forsyth County. After I prosecuted here in Forsyth County, I then became a defense lawyer. I'm a past president of the Forsyth County Criminal Defense Bar, where we moved to have the control over indigent defense taken away from the state and placed in the hands of the local people. I was the president at the time that was pushed through. And another thing that brought me here to Forsyth County was the education system that we have here in Forsyth County. It's flat out the best one in the state. My wife works in the school system. I have educated my children here. I have a daughter who is a sophomore at Tech, and my youngest daughter is a sophomore at North Forsyth. The other thing is that shows that I'm invested in this community is that I've been with Brownsbridge Community Church ever since they built it here, and I'm on the host team there. So thank you very much. I think I see a red card over there. Yeah.
All right, thank you. So we'll go through these questions. We'll go in the same order with the first three questions, and then I'll reverse the order to give everybody an opportunity to answer a question first. Before we get started, though, we do have T-shirts for sale in the back. Everybody interested in supporting us there? All right, so we'll start with Donna. And so in the format of this, we'll give you 2 minutes to answer, and then a minute rebuttal. A minute rebuttal for the other candidates. Question number one. What factors do you consider when you are preparing for a prosecution of a suspect?
The first thing the solicitor that I look at, and I train my 6 assistant solicitors to look at, is the criminal history of the defendant that's been charged. Because we want to know if there is a history of substance abuse, a history of drug abuse, anything like that, and if they've had other DUIs or if they've had other issues on the roadways that I am in charge of helping keep safe. So after looking at those, then we review the facts of the case very carefully. We go through the police report. After going through the police report, we then speak with the officer who made the arrest. Any other supplemental reports that are included in the police report, we speak with all other officers on scene. And then after that, we make our charging decisions based on the evidence that we know we can prove at trial, because as you all know, the burden for a criminal trial is beyond a reasonable doubt, and that is the highest burden that our legal system has. So we have to make sure that we have the facts and evidence to meet that burden. And so after reviewing the history, reviewing the facts, speaking with the officer, talking about the options, about whether or not we'll offer a a defendant a plea deal to close the case out if they don't want to go to trial, or how we will prepare to go to trial. Those are the factors that I take into consideration when prosecuting the case. Also, we want to make sure that if you have a substance abuse issue or some sort of bad habits, that driving habits on the road, that those are addressed by education. So you would have to take, substance abuse education classes and driving education classes. All of those things go into our consideration of how we're going to deal with the prosecution of that case.
All right, thank you. Susan?
I disagree with Ms. Gopaul's assessment, absolutely. The criminal history is, sorry. The criminal history is so important, but you have to look at the facts of a case. I mean, you could have a first arrest that's so egregious, it doesn't matter what their prior history was. It's got to be based on the facts of the case in front of you. And don't get me wrong, I do agree with her that you have to look at that criminal history. But first and foremost are the facts of that case. And then from there, you might not, as prosecutors always say, and after 13 years in training other assistants, I always tell them, everything isn't wrapped up in a bow. You have to be able to do further investigation and go further, because just because you get a case on the front end doesn't mean you can't develop that into something else. So first and foremost, you need to look at the facts of that case, and you need to go through them and see what you got. Absolutely, criminal history is going to take a play because you want to put the person into, if they do have a drug problem. Forsyth County now has misdemeanor drug court. The same drug court that they're following that I started in Cherokee County. And it is important. These alternative courts, I know some people are a little shy away from them. Well, they're important. You can't prosecute every case. You can't try every case. But what you can do is use the experience to make sure that you're prosecuting the right ones. And even if a case is hard, it's not good enough to say, well, I may not be able to prove it. There are some cases like that, but you have to be able to fight and say, you know what, you got to make yourself be able to prove that case.
Thank you, Susan. Bill, and I'll repeat the question. I should have repeated it for you as well, Susan. But what factor do you consider when you're preparing for a prosecution of a suspect?
Thank you. I think the very first thing that you have to do is look and see whether or not you can prove the elements of the crime. Each crime has a set of elements that you have to be able to prove each and every one of beyond a reasonable doubt before you can obtain a conviction against somebody. That's the very first thing I would do. The second would be to look at the relationship between the victim and the defendant. I don't think you can treat every single case the exact same way, because it could be that you have a domestic violence case where John and Mary have been married for 50 years and all of a sudden, to make his point, had touched her right above her elbow. Now, you need to know whether or not that's the first incident within 50 years of blissful marriage, or whether or not that same sort of thing happens week after week after week after week. And so I think that you need to know the relationship between the victim and the defendant, and whether or not the incidents have gone unreported before. And then lastly, I'd like to know whether or not I'm following the Constitution of the United States, because sometimes the state loses, but are you doing the correct thing? And so that would be always my guiding principle, is that you may be right and you may be able to prove the case because it is a violation of the law, but am I doing right? And every single day I want to be able to look in the mirror and know I am being just and I am being right in front of my Maker.
Thank you, Bill. Does anybody want to use a minute to rebut any of the answers?
Well, if I could just use a little bit of that time. Both of the answers from the opponents here up on the stage echoed exactly what I said in my answer. You have to look at the criminal history, you have to look at the facts, and you have to decide whether or not the case can close out with a plea or it needs to go to trial. So I'd just like to reiterate that fact.
Susan Roselle?
No.
Okay. All right, the second question, we'll start with Susan. Forsyth County once again is poised for some rapid growth in business and housing starts. With this positive news, there are also come some challenges and potential crime growth. How should the Solicitor General prepare for all the things that might come with this type of growth?
The way you can prepare for that is bring experience back. I have been throughout my campaign the theme of how experience does matter. As a prosecutor for 13 years, both on a felony and misdemeanor level, I prosecuted in one of probably the largest DA's offices in the nation. The way you prepare for that is you have experience. You have training. You get those. Everyone has to start out somewhere, and I too was once a new assistant district attorney, a new assistant solicitor. But you need experience to be able to train them and to be able to, so they know what to do. You also need to utilize the sources you have out there. You need to have in your office what I would propose to do right now, the way the solicitor's office stands, and this has standed apparently for years. There is no post-certified officer that works at the solicitor's office. Those investigators risk their life every day. Now, again, I know you'll hear a lot, well, it's only a misdemeanor. Does everybody realize domestic violence misdemeanors, they're always rampant. They were rampant in Cherokee County too because they happen. And they're serious. You have an investigator going out there that's not post-certified. They're not trained for that. And they can be. It's not like they have to, they can be trained. They go and get trained like any other officer does. Those are the things to prepare this county for that. Those are the things.
Okay, Bill, I'll repeat the question. Forsyth County is once again poised for some rapid growth in business and housing. And with that positive news, there comes some challenges and potential crime growth. How should the Solicitor General prepare for all the things that come with this type of growth?
I think that anytime that there is managed growth, it is a good thing. And so hopefully the growth that is coming this way will be of that kind. But anytime that you have an influx of new people, you're going to have an influx of crime. That's just the nature of the business. And so what you would need to do when you see the influx of people, you need to know what are your resources and what are the criminal statistics. If your crime is increasing, then you need to go before the board, the commissioners, and ask for more money in order to deal with that. Now, I know that the appropriation of money, it always makes everybody just cringe up, but you have to be able to perform your duties. And if you don't have the support of your local government to prosecute those crimes that come with increased people, then you need to go before them and ask for the money. And so you would also always want to be ahead of the game in knowing where those statistics are taking you, because you don't want to be back behind and always trying to play catch up. So you want to be able to have the resources and the manpower necessary to keep up with the influx of people.
Thank you, Bill. Donna, Forsyth County once again is poised for some rapid growth in business and housing starts. With this positive news, there also comes some challenges and potential crime growth. How should the Solicitor General prepare for all the things that come with this type of growth?
We've already prepared for it. We already have a program in place at no extra cost to the taxpayers of Forsyth County. It is called the SWELL program, and it is a community prosecutor program, and it addresses these exact issues. Because we're having such rapid growth in the county, we have someone assigned in the office already, no extra money is being paid out, to address homeowners associations about problems that may arise to become crimes, so we can go ahead and head on address those problems and see if there's some way we can point these people in the right direction without it becoming a crime. That's true, we do not have any post-certified investigators, and that was the case with the prior Solicitor General. He was the solicitor for over 20 years, and that is something that I hope to change soon. But the SWELL program is there to deal with this exact thing. The southern part of the county has exploded in growth so much that I realized that 2 other counties had this community prosecutor program in place and knew that we could have the same thing here in Forsyth County to point people in the right direction when they didn't know who to call to address maybe golf cart issues in their subdivision or people who run stop signs in their subdivision. So I'm very proud to say we already have a program in place to deal with this very problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody want to use time to rebut?
Actually, I just have a quick question. This SWELL program that you called, who are the people that are running it? Do they have any training in it? I'm curious to know who is actually doing that.
The person that is in charge of the program is an assistant solicitor here for the county, for my office, and they do have training going out. My eventual goal is to hopefully get a prosecutor in maybe some of the sheriff's precincts to maybe be able to help with questions they may have about whatever issue may come up before them. But we already have someone on staff. No one is getting paid extra money. No extra resources are getting spent on this program, and this program is already in place. And we've already gone to a couple of homeowners associations meetings to let the public know that we are there to point them in the right direction when these problems arise.
Thank you.
But I would like, excuse me, I would like to address that just for one moment, because we're getting into issues there that revolve around crime suppression. And crime suppression rests with the local sheriff here, Dwayne Piper. And I don't think that the Solicitor General needs to be allocating resources to crime suppression. Those are separate departments with separate responsibilities. And that while somebody may already be on staff, that staff member is being paid and is not doing the other functions of an assistant solicitor general. So I think that we need to keep our crime suppression with the sheriff's department and not with the solicitor general's office.
Thank you. All right, the third question, Bill, we'll start with you. What are your top 4 priorities or initiatives for the next 4 years if you're elected to office?
Well, the very first thing that I want to know is, are the resources being allocated properly, and whether or not you're saving money in prosecuting the crimes that fall within your jurisdiction. Now, some of that goes along with salaries, some of it goes along with paper and envelopes and that sort of thing, but I think that what we really need to be doing is moving forward as with the rest of society to where we are using less paper and start using more electronic means of communication, and hopefully we will be able to get in with the local defense bar and our clerk's office here and maybe start with e-filing. Because the e-filing works with the civil courts and it ought to be able to work just as well with the criminal courts. The second thing is whether or not my staff would be having a conviction rate that is extremely high. Now, you have to be able to trust your staff and able to enable them to do their jobs. First of all, you need to hire the right people. Then once you've hired the right people, you need to make sure that you're giving them the support necessary in order to determine whether or not a driving under the influence case should be prosecuted or not. And if those assistant solicitors are not learning the difference between a case that you can win and a case that you cannot win, then you either hired the wrong person to begin with, or your training needs to be looked at in order to determine whether or not, hey, am I getting the information that I need to get to my assistants in order to enable them to make those proper decisions? Second, The next thing would be whether or not, I'd like to make the discourse between the two sides in state court to be a little more cordial, because even though you are against, I'm on 0.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Play the low soccer.
I got red carded.
All right, Susan, what are your top 4 priorities or initiatives for the next 4 years if you're elected to office?
My first initiative would be to bring back experience to that office. That doesn't mean you have to go into, no one's going to go in there and just clean house, get rid of anyone. But you want to make sure that people are getting educated and people are becoming good prosecutors. As Mr. Finch says, you have to make sure that they know how to try a case. And you can do that, and you can work with that. We need to get, and what I've seen throughout this campaign is, and my goal throughout this campaign is, I want the citizens to know what the Solicitor General does, because no one knows. How many people I went out, when I made my business card months ago that said, what is the solicitor? I want people to be educated so that they understand. I want to start a program to go out into the schools. My kids are 5 and 7, but the teenagers out there, they don't know what the consequences are. I want to get out to the schools and make sure and educate them and know. So we can utilize the programs that we have in place and make it better. Utilize the drug courts, utilize them to make sure that we're making people productive members of society. Those people are there, and the other ones, we need to, where they need to be. We need to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, and you need that experience to do that.
All right, thank you, Susan. Donna, what are your 4 top priorities or initiatives for the next 4 years if you're elected to office?
The most pressing things, all of my prosecutors are educated. They all went to law school and they all passed the Georgia State Bar. They all have the ability to try a case, and that's what we do in the solicitor's office. We try DUIs. If you've been arrested for driving under the influence of alcohol or driving under the influence of drugs, we're going to try your case because it's making it less safe for the citizens of Forsyth County on the road when there are DUI drivers on the road, or there are batterers in people's homes. 3 most important things that the solicitor's office prosecutes are DUI, drug and alcohol cases, and domestic violence. In the past, these domestic violence cases were all sent to pretrial diversion. No record was created. I have stopped doing that, and that is a top priority. Domestic violence is a cycle of violence. Victims get caught up in this cycle of violence, and we try those cases now. They no longer go to pretrial diversion. That's something else that I've also started doing that I'm going to continue to do if I'm elected to office. DUI, alcohol, or drugs, and a rampant use of marijuana. We are seeing a great increase in the use of marijuana, especially among young people, which is why this misdemeanor drug court is such a wonderful thing here in Forsyth County that Judge Abernathy is running. With DUI prescription drugs, those cases must be prosecuted. Now, DUI prescription drugs, sometimes those are not the easiest cases to win. But we're seeing a rapid increase of drivers taking hydrocodone and oxycodone and Suboxone and Benadryl and getting on the roads. And my priority is to try those cases and make sure that it doesn't happen again, and that when you're on your way home, that those drivers don't hit you or affect your family members or friends.
All right, thank you, Donna. Anybody want to take a minute for rebuttal?
Just a minute. Ms. Gopaul, I see that you're very concerned about DV cases, which are extremely important. Could you explain why you got rid of the social worker? That the social worker is there to help the community. The domestic violence cases are so important. How could you get rid of that? And that's cutting your budget, but you got rid of a crucial part that affects the citizens of this county.
Are you done? Okay. The social worker that was on staff was not counseling our victims. She had a list of her own victims that she was counseling, and she was getting paid more than my attorneys get paid. And my victims were getting seen, but not in a timely fashion. I contact victims who have been a victim of domestic violence, and those defendants have been arrested within 24 hours of that arrest to find out what kind of contact provisions we need to put on for those victims. Do they need to have no contact with that defendant? Do they need to have no violent contact with that defendant? person because there are children involved. We need somebody who does that all the time. And we have someone in the office who does that for less than the amount of money I was paying the social worker that was on staff, who was only getting to do that when she had time. She had a whole list of other clients that she was counseling. So that's why I let her go. She wasn't an efficient use of county money. And the person that I have on doing that and contacting victims within 24 hours of their batterer's arrest, contact those victims and we get that information out so the magistrate court judges know how to set bond to protect victims.
All right, we'll move on to the next question.
But I wanted an opportunity
I'm
to
sorry.
rebut the perception that's been put out by the Solicitor General now, and that is cases are not being sent to pretrial diversion. Well, that office still is sending cases over to what's called mediation over in the Ninth Judicial Circuit. And so victims are then meeting with a mediator with the alleged person who committed the crime in order
They're
to
not
mediate.
domestic violence victims though.
According to the statute, it is because they live with the person at the time, or ever lived with the person at the time, and that's the standard. That's what makes it domestic violence.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Bill, we'll start with you again, reversing the order. What is your management style working across the entities required to effectively operate the Solicitor General's office?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sure. What is your management style when working across the entities required to effectively operate the Solicitor General's office?
Are you referring to other entities within the county government?
No, I believe this is referring to entities within the office.
Well, I think the only entities are that you have lawyers and you have non-lawyers in your office. Excuse me. Do I have this thing correct now?
Yes.
All right, sorry. The entities within the Solicitor General's office, I believe, are those people who are lawyers and those people who are non-lawyers. And my management style is, first of all, to hire good people and not just good lawyers. It's a requirement that you be a good lawyer, but I think you also need to be a good person because there is immense power that comes with prosecution, and a lot of evil can be done in the name of the state if you are not hiring good people. And one of the things that I would always stress to my staff is something that I learned in our church, and it has been a theme that has gone on for a couple of years now from Andy Stanley, and that is based on your past experiences and your current circumstances and your future hopes and dreams. What's the wise thing to do? And so I would always want the wise thing to do be my guiding principle in managing my staff. And I would also want to instill those 3 questions to ask before you ask what is the wise thing to do of my staff, so that they're always doing the wise thing, always doing the just thing, not just doing the legal thing.
Okay, thank you. Susan, the question is to you. What is your management style when working across the entities required to effectively operate the Solicitor General's office?
My management style is, and I think I've learned it throughout my career. When I first graduated law school, sorry. My management style is people work for you. When you're good to people, people are good to you. You want a working environment, you want a family. And that is true. I worked in the Cherokee County Solicitor's office, and everybody had your back because my boss gave us the trust and gave us the ability to know that we were able to do. He believed in us. And when you hire people, that's what you have to do. You have to find people that you guys work well together because you have to give them the trust. The solicitor can't be a micromanager, they have to make their assistants grow and their support staff grow. But that type of environment is so crucial because then people want to work for you. And in my career as a prosecutor, and prior to my career as a prosecutor, when I worked for a Fortune 500 company, when I dealt with people and I managed people, I got good results because I respected them. I respected their time and they respected me. Just like working with the police force. We have two totally different jobs. It extends outside the office, the management style. You have to work with the officers they have a job to do and we have a job to do. And like Mr. Finch said, they are two separate entities. But working together with them and showing that you support them, that's how you get a good office. And that's how you get people to work for you. Because you show them respect, they show you respect, and that experience, you bring that to the table, and you will find that you will get everybody working for you and with you and for this county.
All right, thank you. Donna, to you, what is your management style when working across the entities required to effectively operate the Solicitor General's office?
Open communication. We are able to handle large volumes of defendants in a short amount of time. For example, because we work well together, traffic arraignment, when you get a ticket, there's a date at the bottom of your ticket that you have to come to court, right? So you come to court on that date, and it used to take all day in this very room, because there is no room big enough in the courthouse to hold 600 people. The fire marshal always shut us down. It used to take all day to get a traffic ticket taken care of. My team works together. The prosecutors work together. The admins work together. The investigators work together. We are able to get people through traffic arraignment in 2.5 to 3 hours. You don't have to miss 8 hours of work because we work together as a team, because we have open communication, because we are prepared when we come to court. Bonded arraignment is the same thing. Because we work together and we have open communication, we were able to separate out and have a separate DUI arraignment to see who is eligible to come into our accountability court for DUI court. Also, the same is true for the misdemeanor marijuana court. Because we work together, because we have open communication between the admins, the investigators, and the assistant solicitors, we are able to get people through this system in a much quicker fashion. You don't have to miss work. You don't have to lose pay. And you can get your court date or you can close your case out.
Thank you. Would anybody like to take a minute for a rebuttal? All right, we'll move on. Susan, we'll start with you on this question. What is or should be the mission statement for the Forsyth County Solicitors General, and what strategies and tactics should be in place to ensure the mission is accomplished?
The mission of the Solicitor's Office, there we go again. Now it's on. The mission of the Solicitor's Office and all prosecutors is to seek justice. Seeking justice, it is not, and I say this on my website, it's not about just putting people in jail. Because as the Solicitor General of this county, you have many, many jobs. You have many jobs. You have to make sure that you are tough on crime. I'm a no-nonsense prosecutor. I've been doing this for 13 years. I don't play games. And what I have found, and I have the defense bar in Cherokee County, they always respected me. And that's where I primarily practice here, because I was straightforward. There is no DUI. Here's the offer. And if you want to go to trial, you're more than welcome to go to trial. And that's your right. But you have to serve justice. That's what you have to do. Yes, you have to be harsh, and but you always have to seek justice, whatever that may be. Because there may be times that you get a case that, regardless, you sure, as a prosecutor, boy, I want to prosecute him. But if it's not fair and it wasn't just, or there was something wrong with the stop, well, then that's what we have to do. We have a higher standard as a prosecutor. As a defense counsel, you have one goal. That's your client. As a prosecutor, you have to seek justice. And that justice is for the entire community, not just one individual.
Okay, Donna, what is or should be the mission statement for the Forsyth County Solicitor General, and what strategy and tactics should be in place to ensure the mission is accomplished?
My goal as Solicitor General is to cooperate with all agencies to effectively prosecute cases while seeking justice for victims of crime, and this enables me to keep the community safe. Working together with the Sheriff's Office, working together with the victim advocates, working together with the victims of vehicular homicide in the second degree, we are able to find out what the victim's needs are and accomplish those goals of effective prosecution without wasting taxpayer money in a timely fashion. So when I got sworn in as Solicitor General, we had 8 pending vehicular homicide and the second degree cases. Some of those cases were open for 2 and 3 years, and we were able to close all of those out by January of this year, which I'm very proud of. And that goal of effectively prosecuting cases while seeking justice really did play a role in my being able to do that.
Thank you. Bill, what is or should be the mission statement for the Forsyth County Solicitor General, and what strategies and tactics should be in place to ensure the mission is accomplished?
Well, I think that the very first thing is that you would always want to make sure that you are doing right, that you are standing up for the victim in the case. Sometimes there's not a victim. Sometimes it's running a red light. There's no victim in there. But when there is a victim, you want to be able to give a voice to that person because you're their lawyer and you're standing up and fighting against evil. You want to be able to give a voice to the voiceless, to give strength to the weak. But you also want to make sure that you are upholding the Constitution of the United States. A lot of times we hear that a case failed because of a technicality. Well, most of the time that technicality was a violation of the United States Constitution, and I don't view the Constitution as a technicality. It's the bedrock of our society here in the United States, and I'll never refer to it as a technicality. What I would do to ensure that mission statement succeeds would be to enlist the help of the sheriff and enlist the help of our city police department that's headed by Casey Tatum. You got to have the support of the law enforcement and able to make sure that prosecution works to its best.
Thank you, Bill. Does anybody want to use a minute rebuttal? All right, we'll move on. So Donna, we'll start with you on this next question. Please help us understand how your conservative values and perspective to financial, social, and political history.
I knew I was going to get this question. So, voting and the way that you vote is a very personal and private thing. And I know it's been my opponent's main focus to point out that I voted in a Democratic primary for the last 2 elections. But let me just point this out. Like Governor Deal and like President Ronald Reagan and like Condoleezza Rice, the Democratic Party left me. But regardless of who you vote for in a primary, that has nothing to do with your job as the Solicitor General. And our conservative governor, Governor Nathan Deal, interviewed all 3 of us. Maybe you didn't know that. We were all 3 up for this position last year in January. All 3 of us. And he saw something in me, and it was probably the fact that I worked in the office for 3.5 years as an assistant solicitor and already knew what to do to make it more efficient to save taxpayer money. And I had the history here, I knew the defense bar here, I knew the deputies here, and I knew what it took to make the office more efficient. Thus, the reason I was able to cut the budget $200,000 in 1 year. I don't know what other elected official or appointed elected official has ever done that in this county or any other county. $200,000 in a year? And that was by eliminating unnecessary positions. That was by emailing discovery to defense attorneys, which enabled me to save a ton of money in toner, in ink, in paper, in postage. That was how I was able to cut the budget $200,000. But what's important here is My actions as solicitor this year and 2 months that I've been in office have been demonstrated, and nobody else here can say that to you. I've cut the budget, I've shrunk the office by the unnecessary, taken out the unnecessary elements, and I've made it more efficient for the taxpayers while prosecuting misdemeanor cases and making the roads safe in this county for you.
All right, Susan, the question to you. Please help us understand all your conservative values in perspective to your financial, social, and political history.
My conservative values started at a very young age. I am a lifelong Republican because my family, my mother and father, were lifelong Republicans in a place from New York where there wasn't many of us. But what I learned from that is they stuck to their principles, regardless if they were the most popular or not. They could have probably gotten a lot further in politics if they went to Democrat, but they didn't. And that is important to me as a person. And as Ms. Gopaul says, it doesn't matter. It does matter because it shows your strength and you standing up for what you believe in, whatever it is. That's what I think people miss. It's not the point of Republican, Democrat. It's being true to your values because that goes to the whole essence of being a prosecutor. You have to stand up every day and defend and fight for the victims and fight for the people and do the right thing. That goes back to your values. You can't switch depending on what day of the week it is. Well, I'd like to be something one day and the other day. It can't be convenient to you as a person. The law has to be convenient to the entire county. We have to uphold that law. That's my values. That's the values that I bring to this table, that I bring to this race. My lifelong values that I've stuck to, regardless, when I came from a place that, yes, it was not easy being a Republican, but those are the values that I grew up with. So I do think it's important, ladies and gentlemen, because it goes to everything of what a prosecutor is, to stand up for what's right. And sometimes you stand up for what's right, and you might not have the greatest outcome. But every night as a prosecutor, I put my head on the pillow and go to sleep knowing that I did the right thing, because I always sought justice. It may be not what other people maybe wanted and they didn't like it, but I always stuck to my values, no matter what happened.
Okay, Bill, please help us understand all your conservative values in perspective to your financial, social, and political history.
Who we are and what we are as a person is shaped by our experiences throughout our lifetimes. I guess education ranks pretty high up on the list for me, mainly because my dad was the principal of a high school, my younger brother's the principal of a high school, my mom was an English teacher. I have a sister who's a professor over at the University of Georgia, and another brother who teaches and coaches football. So education runs very strongly through my blood. Now, I think that what we need to be doing as prosecutors is not only bringing down the heavy hand of the law, but also to educate our people to make sure that they are not reviolating. I think that education goes a long way towards preventing people from committing more crimes. I don't think it's any secret that those people who are less educated are committing most of the crimes. And so I would push for an education component to each and every one of the sentences that I recommended to our judges. Next, another part that shaped me was my experiences as a law enforcement officer. Being in that patrol car and riding around in Fulton County, and I can still remember shaking to death on my very first stop. The lady had run a red light, and by the time I got up to her and was holding her insurance card, the end of the insurance card was bouncing up and down. I was so terrified. She, in fact, turned around and looked at me and said, "What's wrong with you?" Well, I was too embarrassed to write her a ticket, just told her, but that, I spent a lot of time, 8 years as as a law enforcement officer, I saw very bad things done to people. And I think that those people need to be given a voice. I've been on both the enforcement side and the prosecution and now defense work, and I think that that well-roundedness is what I would bring to the table.
Thank you. Does anybody want to use time for a rebuttal?
I have a short rebuttal. Regarding Mr. Finch's wish to make education a component of each sentence, that's already being done. All of the sentences that we recommend in state court and in magistrate court require a victim impact panel class. So you go and you learn what happens to victims when they are a victim of a DUI accident or a traffic accident. And there's also the teen victim impact class, which is an educational class that we put on most sentences for teenage drivers so they realize the dangers of texting and driving. And the risk reduction program is required of all DUIs. So that's already being done with sentences in state court now. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else?
Yes. What I was referring to in the education component is not some state mandated course that the legislature makes you take. What I'm referring to is making sure that our people are becoming educated, that they then have to go to class if they are of school age, that they, if they do not have a degree already, then they must attend and complete school or always be in school while they are on probation, or in the alternative that they obtain a GED during that time period.
Yes, Susan.
And again, I think that it's great that Ms. Gopaul is continuing that work, but what I want to make everybody understand, I was a prosecutor in Cherokee County for 3.5 years. This is the status quo. This is what every agency does, what the assistant district attorney, what we did in Pickens County, what we did in Cherokee County. This is what a prosecutor does. Many of these programs and going out and doing defensive driving and things of that nature, that's status quo. There needs to be more. This county is getting bigger and bigger. We need to be more inventive and bring more things to the table, because all of these things, again, that's fine and well, but that's status quo. That's what every prosecutor's office around the nation, around this county, that's what they do.
All right, thank you. All right, we don't have time for any more questions. So what we're going to do is have the closing comments, and we'll go in reverse order from the opening comments. So Bill, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. As I said in the beginning, I'll be asking that you invest in me as a candidate. And one of the things that I want you to do is look at and see who is invested in this community, who's lived here the longest, who has been a member of this community for 20 years, who brings law enforcement experience to the table, who brings prosecution experience to the table, and who brings defense experience to the table. And I think that that well-roundedness brings a better and a unique perspective to the job that the Solicitor General would have. And I guess the guiding principle always would be, as a prosecutor, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the just thing? And not simply doing what is the legal thing. Thank you.
Susan?
Okay, I think I know. What I'm asking everybody, what I've been asking everyone over the past 8 months, when I decided to run for this position, I have a vested interest in this community. I haven't lived here for 20 years, but I chose Forsyth County. My husband and I chose this county not for a job, not for anything. We had each other and our 6-week-year-old, and we chose this county. And what I'm asking you, and I'm asking everyone as I've been campaigning, is I want this county to make an educated decision on who do they feel is the best person for this job. Who's got the most experience? I have 13 years prosecution experience. And ladies and gentlemen, please make no mistake. Being a prosecutor is not like being a defense counsel. I do work like that now, so I have that well-rounded experience. I come from a family of law enforcement. I've been working with officers in all these different jurisdictions for 13 years. And that experience, that cannot be taken away and it cannot be overlooked. That's how we're going to move this county to compensate for the growth. You need that experience. You need to have prosecutors that know what they're doing, not a prosecutor making the second largest salary that's been an attorney for 18 months. We need to go in there and make sure that everything is in proportion. There's going to be new people, and of course, you're going to have prosecutors that are new, but you need to train them. But that's what we need to do. We need to bring experience back to that office to make sure that we can move forward and not live in the status quo. We need to advance. Thank you.
Are you done?
Thank you for taking the time to come out tonight, and thank you to the Tea Party again for putting this debate on. But neither of the candidates here have the experience in Forsyth County State Court that I have. Neither of the candidates here on the platform have been prosecuting cases here for, Ms. Zereini has never prosecuted a case here. She applied to the district attorney's office and wasn't selected. She applied for the governor to be Solicitor General, she wasn't selected. Mr. Finch prosecuted cases here in the last century in 1998 when there was only one state court judge. I am currently prosecuting cases here, and we've cut the budget $200,000. We've implemented all of the accountability reports to make sure we don't have people re-offending. They're getting the kind of supervision and they're being held accountable. They're being tested on a regular basis in DUI court, in misdemeanor drug court, and the soon up and coming mental health court program. She touts her years of experience in New York, but she's never prosecuted here in Forsyth County. She lives here in Forsyth County because I prosecute cases here in Forsyth County, and I make it safe for you all to drive on the roads to work, to school, and to church. So traveling on the roads that I keep safe, I want to keep this county where we are, and I want to advance with the booming population. And to do that, I ask for your vote and your trust in me to be your Solicitor General next year, or in May, rather.
Thank you.
You guys, just stand up here for a moment. Everybody, give these candidates.
Thank you.